So, hello everybody. I know it's been a long time. As you can tell, I am severely overheated right now. I meant to post a video about a week ago, but I have been home with what might be a broken wrist. It's definitely severely sprained, and it's been limiting my ability to do any gaming. So I haven't been able to do anything with the No Man's Sky Worlds Part 1 update. I haven't been able to do anything with Starfield. I haven't been able to try out the new Valve game. But being home for a week and not being able to actually do much of anything allowed me to consume a lot of media and news. And, well, much to my non-surprise, the big one going around this week is the fact that, yes, the Acolyte was cancelled. Not renewed, it was cancelled. So, I'm sure everybody's expecting the victory lap run that you see from a lot of content creators, and I just want to say you're not going to get that from me. There's a few reasons for that, but I'm going to start this off by saying it's not necessarily a good thing for Star Wars when Star Wars media gets canceled. My worry is the quality of Star Wars media has been declining. And right away you're going to get people saying, well, you're just crying because, this is woke, that is woke. Can we be clear here? The Acolyte wasn't woke. The Acolyte had one mention of lesbians. If you consider that woke, you may want to go outside and get some sunlight, because that's not woke. Okay? So, was I surprised that it was canceled? Absolutely not. And most of the fan base did not watch the show. And I want to convey this to people. You see a lot of these clickbait titles about how Dude Bros got Star Wars Acolyte canceled. If the Dude Bros are such a vocal minority, and they hold no power whatsoever, how the hell did they get a show that has a $200 million budget canceled? How did they convince over 80% of the Star Wars fandom to stop watching the show after just 3 episodes? I will explain to you. The writing was bad. The acting was bad. The time period that this show is set in had the ability to mine a lot of great material, but the writers had no clue how to do this. Now, the other excuse you're going to get for this is, well, part of this filmed during COVID and part of this filmed during the writer's strike. Well, that's fine, except for the fact that Little Miss Headland admits that during the filming of later episodes of the show, she literally would rewrite scripts on the fly, forcing in her own personal agenda and personal physical, sexual appeal of certain individuals, shall we say. It was a crap show. And this is alarming because, well, it's alarming and it's not alarming because I said way back when Disney purchased the Star Wars IP from George Lucas that this was going to probably be really bad for Star Wars. It's bad. Mega mergers are bad to begin with. IP purchases are always bad. They always go very poorly. It's rare. I mean, Marvel was a rarity, but Marvel had a lot of controls on it. It was managed by people that love and respected the properties of Marvel. Not so much anymore. And you see that same problem with Star Wars. Star Wars' problem is twofold. First, you have Disney. Disney has never created anything on their own successfully. They steal public IP in the form of fairy tales, and any unique properties that they develop, one, aren't done by Disney solely. Most notably, you had Pixar that was responsible for about 90% of their animated success in the last 20 years. And the stuff that they did make wholesale inside Disney, they basically ruined by monetizing into oblivion, sacrificing quality, story, structure, lore for money and profit and toy sales and book sales and cartoon sales and DVD sales. So when you came down to the purchase of Star Wars from George Lucas, I will say this. I honestly think George Lucas absolutely hated the Star Wars fandom. And I have a few reasons for this. First of all, while he may have been the mastermind for the vision of Star Wars, he sure as hell was not the creative power behind it. We know this because there were a lot of talented writers, producers, directors, script writers, FX artists that worked inside LucasArts that were responsible for the success of his early films. His own wife's editing was the whole reason why Empire Strikes Back was as successful as it was. And over the years, a lot of these people have gone by the wayside. So when you got up to the Disney sale, I stand by the idea that George Lucas actually hated the fandom at this point. He hated what he created. He had no interest in it anymore. He knew he created something that he did not do world building in. He made no effort to give this a generation-spanning deep lore. The fans filled in a lot of it, which Disney subsequently threw away after the sale, and a lot of what he saw the fandom building with guidelines by what he set up, he either hated or was envious of the fact that it might have been actually better than what he created. So his final nail and knife into the fandom, instead of making it a public IP, which, let's be honest, by the time George Lucas sold Star Wars, he was a multi-billionaire. It wasn't about money. It wasn't about credit. It wasn't about fame at this point. Disney did not need to be sold Star Wars. Star Wars could have been given to the public domain, allowing anybody to make whatever they wanted in Star Wars. But he chose to do what he did. A company that he once referred to as white slavers was sold the Star Wars IP. Now, you can call me a dude bro for being happy that The Acolyte was canceled. I'm a white gay male. I fit some of the woke criteria that you claim a dude bro like myself hates and is bigoted against and wants to see wiped out of existence. So when I tell you that there are some properties that have been made under the Disney umbrella, and/or Obi-Wan Kenobi for all its faults, Ahsoka for all its faults, the very first prequel movie, I think they were some great shit. We would have loved to have seen a Mace Windu movie. Or a series. Tales of the Jedi was, oddly enough, quite good. So, do you hear what I'm saying to you? I can have a critical view of Star Wars and like some of the stuff that was made in spite of its faults. You don't hear me saying woke. You don't hear me complaining about female leads. You don't hear me complaining about black people and representation in Star Wars. Because in reality, none of those things matter. Star Wars isn't a skin or a condom that you wrap around the dick of the IP to fit your own agenda. It never was supposed to be this way. Star Wars, for its core elements, was the people against fascism. And that's not me spewing a Marxist ideal. That's not me spewing communism. It's literally what it was. It was the rebels against the empire. Now, Lucas has been pressed in many interviews to clarify that it was about Vietnam or World War II. It doesn't matter, because this is a cyclical struggle through the course of human history. That is the core fundamental of Star Wars. On top of that, you can build out whatever you want, as long as you do it competently. That's the key here. Competency. And the problem with Disney is Disney wants to save money wherever they can. And I'm not against giving brand new directors access to things that they've never done before. There are many times where you take a director that has never done anything in IP, you hand them something, and they do amazing work. James Cameron in Aliens really stands out for that. So, when you sit here and claim that, oh no, Acolyte was the best thing that Star Wars has ever produced, and it was just angry dude bros that got it canceled, you need to start addressing reality here. This was the lowest rated streaming Star Wars property on Disney Plus. Disney's own published Nielsen numbers proves this. 80% of the fan base, that includes 3 generations of Star Wars fans, that includes the dude bros, the woke bros, the trans bros, the queer bros, the racial bros, the Marxist bros, the communist bros, the socialist bros. It encompasses the entire spectrum of Star Wars fandom. 80% of those people did not watch The Acolyte. By the time The Acolyte's finale aired, it was averaging less than 4 million viewers. In comparison, House of the Dragon's finale, which arguably was one of the weakest Game of Thrones finales, averaged almost 8 million viewers. House of the Dragon had a lower budget. A lower budget than The Acolyte. Had better artistic quality, had better acting, had better writing. So what is your argument? What is your argument then for claiming that, oh, it was just bigotry that got this show canceled? That's weird, because it was the lead actress that came swinging out of the gate, calling any white person that watched the show a racist, homophobic bigot. I'm sorry, what? And then you have the content creator class of people, most notably on YouTube, people like Kyle Cartan and a whole mess of other reviewers. I'm not going to sit here and name call for an hour. A lot of people who are scared of losing access. Kyle Cartan, for the love of God, be honest. You cannot be critical of anything Star Wars, of anything Microsoft related, anything that you love that makes you a lot of money. You can't objectively be creative about because you are scared as hell to lose access. And I don't blame you. I get it. I get it. You're watching your bag. But please be honest about it. Be absolutely honest about why you cannot be objectively critical about the things you love. And he's going to come up with some anemic excuse for why, well, I do find things that I don't like in it, but I don't really feel the necessity to highlight the negatives and everything. Spare me, please. Because there was very little redeeming about The Acolyte. Cinematically, it was filmed fairly well. I commend them on not using the volume for everything and using live sets and taking a little bit of effort of doing a little bit better writing than Ahsoka. But that's where the quality ends and everything else just goes off a cliff in terms of narrative and cohesiveness and wanting to exploit things just for the sake of having them in your show and weaving in a narrative of men are bad and the Force is female, and there's no need to do this. And the other assertion that, women don't watch Star Wars, I grew up with girls that watched Star Wars. I knew 2 very well-connected female cosplayers that do nothing but Star Wars, that were actually consulted on costume design for Star Wars things that I cannot talk about. So, no, it's not that Star Wars isn't for women. It's not that you can't make these properties masculine and still appeal to women, because women understand that the core fundamental of Star Wars is the narrative. It's the narrative overriding everything. And when you turn that narrative into a geopolitical, now-time allegory, it kind of loses its meaning because it's too prescient. It's too in your face. It's part of the reason why season 4 of The Boys kind of rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, because while The Boys was a critique of both leftism and rightism in America, it did it in a very overarching way. And when it started making direct allegories to real-world people, it kind of just felt like you were being preached to, which media isn't supposed to do. Fantasy entertainment is not supposed to preach to you. It can give you allegories to real-world things and make you think about them. One of the best shows that I've ever seen that has done this is The Expanse. If you don't think that The Expanse is woke, multicultural, and political, you're an absolute moron. But it does it in such a great way, where not only do you have numerous, incredibly well-written, well-rounded, multi-dimensional female protagonists. Let me get this clear to you. That show has four quality-written female protagonists that everybody in that show's fandom love, more so than the male protagonists. It deals with oppression, racism, politics, communism, socialism, in ways that I think a lot of people didn't even actually process the first time they watched the show. But it did in a way that was the best part of it. That I didn't sit down after every episode going, oh my god, I just watched the Marx Manifesto for the third time. I got told how bad men are. I got told racism bad. But I absorbed through the show the messages the writers were trying to convey. That how a future world could look like this and still be an allegory to what goes on in my world today. Acolyte does none of that. Absolutely none of that. And you know what? As an IP, Star Wars was really never written to do that. You hear a lot of people say that Star Wars is creatively bankrupt. And to some degree, these people are right. Red Letter Media brings this up a lot. Yeah, they're right. Star Wars is a microcosm of about 100 years. Okay? Imagine going through history and plucking at 100 years at any point. You can make a really well-rounded story about anything that's happened in human history over the course of 100 years. Over the course of, let's say, 3 movies, make it compelling, relevant, prescient, meaningful, impactful, and never touch on the people of those times, the politics of those times, or the races and the sexuality of the people of those times, and still make it incredibly relevant to you today. Star Wars did that successfully once. I love the prequels. I absolutely love the prequels. They were my Star Wars growing up as a child. They were not my parents' Star Wars, but I loved my parents' Star Wars just as much. I don't like this generation's Star Wars as much. Mostly because the ball was fumbled. And while Star Wars may not be the thinking man sci-fi, I don't want to feel like I need to dumb myself down to an infinitesimal level to appreciate media. If I want to go and watch a popcorn flick, I go watch The Fast and Furious. If I want to go and watch a intelligently written, produced, directed, and scripted movie, I'll go watch Inception, or Interstellar, or on and on and on. Arrival. But I can understand the difference between the two. Star Wars at this point doesn't know what it wants to be. It is creatively bankrupt. And this is the problem. There is no direction anymore at LucasArts. You can blame Kathleen Kennedy, but you can also blame the other 2 chuckleheads. And I'm not going to deride their names because if I get started, this video is going to be 4 hours long. There's a lack of cohesion. And maybe it's because they're trying to spin up too many properties too fast. They have to pad out a streaming service that really doesn't have much to offer. And as we've seen with the problems with Paramount lately, if you don't have a lot of compelling material, you lose money. And Disney Plus, inevitably, is losing money. It is a loss leader for Disney right now. And people's spending habits change. We don't want 5 million subscription services, so we're going to be very finicky as to what we watch, when we watch it, and what we pay for. I don't know how many times I've spun up a service, watched a show for a month, canceled it, not watched anything else on the service for 6 months before picking up the same show the next time around. Most notably, that was me and HBO Max with House of the Dragon. Now I've got the Dune series coming, but still. And this is the problem with streaming services is quality goes away for quantity. So maybe instead of being upset that the Acolyte was canceled, maybe you should be pressing, most notably Kathleen Kennedy, as to what is the plan with Star Wars? Why are we splitting the IP between two content mediums, movies and streaming services? I want one or the other. I don't want both. Because Star Wars is a tentpole IP for Disney. If you ask any of the Disney investors, they will tell you Star Wars is a tentpole IP. Right up there with Marvel. It's their two biggest IPs. Do you want to dilute and water them down to the point where nobody likes them anymore? And how much can you fleece these IPs before they just don't matter anymore? And the problem with Star Wars is they applied the Marvel content formula to Star Wars. I want to be clear, you can't do that. You can't be pumping out a Star Wars movie every year and making them quality and making people want to watch them. The superhero burnout was very prescient for the last 5 years. Marvel blew its load and then took a 5-year nap. Star Wars might need to do that. And that includes streaming services. We got season 2 of Andor coming next year. And even that has me slightly worried. Worried that it's going to feel pressed to include fan service inside of it to appease people that maybe did not watch Andor because Andor was actually deep. And people roll their eyes and go, oh, you're just saying that because there's a male protagonist and the protagonist is light-skinned and heterosexual. No. There were multiple protagonists in that show. Many of them female. One of them a lesbian. It had nothing to do with the quality of the writing or the content in that show. It took a slice of Star Wars that had never been covered. Things that most people would consider mundane, but Star Wars fans have been craving to see. The actual day-to-day life. How the Empire managed to secure so much power so quickly, and the people become so complacent with an escalating amount of oppression and violence and subjugation. It is a case study in human nature. This is what adult Star Wars fans want. And for people that say, well, I don't watch media to think. Well, there's plenty of other media out there for you to consume. To be clear, we live in a golden age of media. Arguably. Where you can find a form of media that suits whatever you're looking for. Comedy, drama, intelligence. Cut your brain out and just watch things go boom. Queer literature, racial literature. You can find whatever you're looking for. It doesn't need to be shoehorned into everything everybody else consumes. Because not everybody is looking for that. And if all you're going to do is muddy every IP and every intellectual property and content medium out there with the same crap, eventually nobody wants to watch it. Nobody wants to consume it. Nobody feels it's relevant. And you can say, oh, well, that's just a white thing because white people don't want to be spoken to about the problems of other people. If that were true, not a single media element discussing racism, poverty, homelessness, homophobia, racism, sexism, misogyny would ever be created. Because supposedly, people like me control everything. A dude bro like me controls the strings of everything. And we want that silenced. We don't want to hear other people's voices. Please spare me. Please. This is getting old. And I think even the people within woke communities are getting tired of doing this, because all it's done is alienate a lot of people. A lot of people who otherwise, I don't think anybody wants oppression, poverty, homophobia, sexism. But there comes a point where you need to rein in some of your rhetoric, some of your overarching vitriol, and not alienate people who are on your side. Because inevitably, human nature puts most people on your side. If you don't think you can find commonality with people you have opposing viewpoints with, you're delusional. That's not true. The whole course of human history has been people coming together with commonalities and solving problems. Otherwise, we wouldn't exist. We would have died in World War I. So I'm going to wrap this up by saying I really, most notably in the content creation community, I want people to start being a bit more honest. And yeah, that might cause you some ad revenue. That might alienate some people that you kind of think are your friends or mutual creators. They're not. They're not. If they can't stomach you having the slightest bit of criticism for something you both enjoy but might find faults in, if they are willing to cancel you, isolate you, keep you from interacting with certain facets of said community, you don't need those people in your life. Trust me, from somebody who had to literally cut out of his life a family member who was abusive physically and emotionally. If I didn't do that, I would probably be in jail right now, because said person would be terminated by me. There are times where you need to cut things out of your life for your own benefit. If you cannot commiserate with people and be moderately objective and moderately critical, you don't have to come out of the gate swinging. You don't have to scream that, oh my God, there's women in Star Wars. No, you can come out and say, yeah, The Rings of Power was shitty writing and shitty acting, and it kind of crapped on the Tolkien IP. But I liked the cinematography, and I liked some of the set pieces, and I thought Amazon put a lot of thought into, something. You can do that. And if people can't accept you for that, cut them out of your life. They don't deserve to interact with you. And if you're too scared to do that, that's a personal problem that you need to address. Thank you, everybody.